I wanted to make another video to share some ideas that I think might help if you are facing a situation that I just faced. Recently, I got to work with teachers where part of our group was in person and part of our group was remote. So I was with people in the same space, but then I also had people streaming in on the computer. And I found that delightfully challenging. There were some problems that I'm interested in solving, unexpected problems that I'm interested in solving that I'm gonna try to work through with you here on this video. Please feel free to comment and share any ideas you have. I'm at the very beginning of this myself, so I'm curious what you all are doing too. Okay, so the first thing is naming the big problem that I faced trying to teach half in person, half remotely at the same time, right? Kids live streaming in to the classroom. The main problem I found was trying to figure out some ways so that the people who were remote didn't feel totally marginalized and removed from the work that we were doing. I don't think I was successful at that so far. In fact, I know I wasn't, but I'm starting to think through some ways that I can do a better job to make sure that we form a kind of community that crosses the boundary of the distance, both my physical distance from kids, but then also the distance between these two groups that aren't having the same experience. So I wanted to share a few ideas with you. In addition, I apologize in advance for the fact that I desperately need a haircut and am wearing a baseball cap. My only excuse is that we're in a pandemic, and I think that maybe collectively we've decided to just wear baseball hats and sweatpants all the time now. Am I wrong? Anyway, okay, so here are some ideas. When you're teaching while live streaming, the first thing is the most obvious. Setup is everything. So figuring out where your camera is going to be, can it see you? Can it see clearly what you are projecting or putting up for kids? Or are you screen sharing on the computer to show kids documents or slides? And if so, are all the kids on the computer watching those things? Is there a chart or a document camera up here and on the computer? You follow, right? How are we making sure that our students who are remote can see everything that the kids in class can see, and vice versa? Now, I'm curious in finding ways that aren't just screen-based. So I know that even in-person students are going to be on screens more than maybe we would like. So I'm always looking for opportunities to have kids have their eyes on a piece of paper or on a screen far away or on me or something else. So I'm struggling through that, but I have to think that through much more carefully the next time I work in a live streaming capacity. So setup is everything. Where's the camera? How are kids remotely going to see the stuff you need them to see? How are kids in person going to see the stuff you want them to see? That's important to think through. The second thing is a great idea from Kay in Chappaqua. Thank you so much for this idea. It's brilliant. She realized that it would make a lot of sense if we have remote kids and in-person kids to have a kind of buddy system in place for one kid in class matched with a kid who is out of class or learning remotely. There are a couple reasons for this. One, just to have that connection. Two, it was difficult for teachers to advocate for themselves when they were remote. If my sound was cutting in and off, if my screen was freezing, if they couldn't see something, that was challenging for grown-ups to kind of like insert themselves and interrupt and be like, I can't hear you. I can only imagine that students are going to have a harder time. So having a kid in class that a student at home can kind of write to and say like, hey, I can't hear, or I can't see that, I think it's going to be a lot easier for a kid in class to raise their hand as opposed to a kid remotely waiting for me to see them on the screen or something like that. So I think the buddy system makes a ton of sense. Can we connect a kid who's in class to a kid who is remotely? And then of course we can have lots of opportunities for those kids to work together in more meaningful ways around the work that we're doing together. Third thing, wait, that's one. Third thing, wait, there we go. Wow. is to focus on connecting with tech. And what I mean by that is kids are connecting together in the classroom using the technology, that we're tying together the kids who are remote and the kids who are in person on tech platforms whenever we can, so that we're trying to bridge that gap and not create two separate classrooms, but trying to fuse them together a bit. Some ways that I'm playing around with that and want to play around more. One is still having every kid in the class, both in person and remote, have a computer up so that we can do breakout rooms. If you are using Zoom, Google Meets, I think breakout rooms are coming out in October, so then you can use them then. So it could be breakout rooms where we're mixing groups remotely and in person. It could be just simply a platform like Seesaw or Flipgrid or something like that, where kids are posting something and kids can come in and comment on it or post videos or have a discussion around it. Also using the chat box feature in your streaming platform will help kids create some kind of connection and community. So I think there's probably a bunch more ideas, probably lots of people, you're trying things on your own, feel free to add some. But I think taking that class time and just being conscious of how am I going to bridge the divide and make connections between the kids who are distance learning and the kids who are with me in the classroom. Okay, fourth thing is thinking about, again, how we're using our time. This is similar from my last video. I really think that when we're in class together, that time, that live learning time, should be focused on quick instruction from me, quick whole class instruction, and then practice. So when we're in class, you're mostly reading and you're mostly writing. So that we can get that work done, so that you can do it in the presence of a teacher and your peers, etc. Homework time, so non-live time, then becomes the place where we foster discussion and response. Again, using our tech platforms to create groups, to have them post to platforms like Flipgrid, etc. But that we really focus that when they're not in class, that's the time that kids probably can do more discussion, connection, talking back and forth with each other, commenting on each other's work, etc. It feels a little flipped because, of course, normally I would do most of that work in class with me, but I think we want to preserve the live time with kids for making sure that the reading work, the writing work is happening, and then really fostering those connections in other ways when we're not live all together. Obviously, we can do other things. We can have whole class discussions. I found it very tricky to have a whole class discussion when I had some of my participants in person and some of my participants at home, because of course the people at home did not feel like they could be a part of the discussion in the same way. So I'm still working on that. The last thing is that I have now ordered about 5 handheld whiteboards and good markers, and even whiteboard magnetic Post-its and stuff, because I think whiteboards are life in this situation. I found myself moving around the classroom, quote unquote. We were actually outside, but still, I found myself moving around the space and sometimes needing to like communicate something to the class, or wanting to hold something up to the computer for the people remotely to see, or there's just a way that I felt like I couldn't just go up and talk to people, right? And I had people in so many different spaces, in person, remote. So I had a very big one, so it was a little awkward, but I wound up just carrying around this whiteboard so that I could like jot things down. Or if I was working with someone, I could work with them from far away, write things down and hold it up. Or if I was working with someone online, I could write things down and hold it up. But it just created, I feel like, a lot more flexibility in terms of how I was able to work with the people I was working with. Okay, so those are just a few ideas, 5 ideas. 1, setup is everything. 2, get a buddy system going. 3, connect with tech in the class. 4, think about how you're using your time in class versus homework time. And then the 5th is get yourself some whiteboards if you can. Last thing I wanted to throw out there, a bonus round here, is I know many people are talking about teaching outside when possible. And so I also got to do that on Monday and Tuesday. And I just want to say one thing. No, I want to say 2 things. First, pay attention to where the sun is if you're teaching outside, and where it's going to move across the day, because you are going to want to be in the shade as much as possible, or at least with the sun thoughtfully placed. I started teaching a bunch of times where the sun was glaring in my face. I found it very challenging. Then I moved, but then it turns out the sun moves as well. And so the sun moved in my face again. So just be aware of the sun. And also, if students are teaching outside, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world to figure out with your school what the mowing schedule is for your district, because it is challenging to teach outside when they're mowing. Those are my 2 pro tips. Bonus round. Hope everyone's all right. Best of luck to you. Let me know if there's stuff I haven't thought of that might be helpful. Take care, everybody.